Just a couple of names. Thaddeus Stevens, he was the radical Republican leader in the House. Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, he was the radical leader in the Senate. So those two names you'll see in bold print in your book. That's page 303. I'm just going to go through some terms real quick. And this video will explain a lot and do a great job, and it's an interesting video. I think it's about 6.5 minutes long. I like it. But one thing that Republicans passed was they founded the Freedmen's Bureau. Freedmen's Bureau. Freedmen's Bureau. And it was the first federal relief agency. It provided clothing and food for freed slaves. It tried to find them jobs. It even helped poverty-stricken whites. Um, they would negotiate fair contracts for freed slaves. They would intervene when the court was unfair to black freed slaves. If your civil rights were violated, they would intervene. They were a pretty good agency. Not a lot of riffraff, all in all. So, anyway, the next thing that happened, the 14th Amendment was passed by Congress. Now, it in your book goes through this, but like I said, you don't have to read it. But on page 305, if you missed something, basically, it made all Americans citizens, not only of the United States, but of the state where they lived. It said Congress's representation would be based on a whole population, going back to where slaves were now one whole person, as opposed to a percentage, which was crazy to begin with. It said if you had sworn an oath to the Constitution and broken that by joining with the Confederacy, you could not hold office. And it also said that we're not going to pay debts. Some of the southern states were saying, hey, North, you bombed our building, our courthouse, or you destroyed Farmer John's field. You owe us some money for that. And they said, no, we're not going to pay it. At this point, radical Reconstruction had begun. I told you there were 3 phases of Reconstruction. Presidential was the first. Radical is the second. And Johnson is losing control. The Reconstruction Act of 1867 was passed. And by the way, what caused this, Johnson had, and you'll see this in the video, I believe it's in this video. It may not be. It may be. But Johnson had gone throughout the land during the midterm elections when you elect Congress. And he had campaigned against radical Republicans, which, as you can imagine, caused more moderate Republicans to become radical. And the radical Republicans overwhelmingly took over, and they had enough that they could get rid of any presidential vetoes. And Andrew Johnson vetoed a lot, but Congress overrode him a lot on his vetoes. The Reconstruction Act of 1867 ordered the Army to ensure the South complied with congressional mandates. Can you imagine? Picture you live in the South at that time. You have lost your slaves, and rightly so, slavery was bad, but they're gone. Your workforce is gone. Let's say you have a farm and you had 2 or 3 slaves. They're gone. So what do? Your economy's ruined. A lot of your food is gone. A lot of your supplies are gone. And you think the war's over, at least we can start rebuilding. And here comes the military setting up camp in your state, in your area. They divided the South into 5 military districts. And they said, hey, we'll pull the troops out when black people have the right to vote and hold office, that you have a state constitutional convention, that you submit that constitutional convention to Congress and we approve it, and that you ratify the 14th Amendment. When the states have done this, when all the states have done this, we'll pull the military out. But can you imagine the shock and horror that people felt when here's the military? Much akin to when the military was all around Boston and the like, the British military leading up to the Revolutionary War, and how they just despised that. And you can imagine how they were in the South. 2 terms, carpetbaggers and scalawags. You'll want to know that. And carpetbaggers were Northerners that came down here to either set up businesses. They came under the guise of helping reconstruct the South, but a lot of them set up business, and a lot of people looked at it and thought, hey, they're taking advantage of us. They're making money off of our hardships. So they were called carpetbaggers because they carried these suitcases that were made out of carpet. And it was like a cloth, and it had like little not argyle, but little patterns, and they called them carpetbaggers. Scalawags were Southerners who supported the Union, and they would have been called Unionists during the Civil War, but they were now called scalawags. One thing about the 14th Amendment, it allowed, since blacks, since a lot of people couldn't hold office, if they had pledged their faithfulness to the Confederacy, they couldn't hold office. And blacks were voted in to the House of Representatives from the South. That's why you'll hear a lot, if let's say a state like Mississippi, they get a black representative, you might hear on the news, modern day, you might hear on the news, well, that's the first or second or third black from Mississippi since Reconstruction. Because during Reconstruction, there were a bunch of freed slaves and blacks alike who were elected to Congress. You'll see a little artist depiction, cartoon drawing on 307 of a carpetbagger. And then this all leads to Johnson's impeachment. Johnson keeps fighting. He keeps fighting these radicals. He's trying to stop them. He keeps vetoing. They keep overriding. They're at each other's throats. And so much like Adam Schiff in the House of Representatives did recently with President Trump, they start dreaming up a way that they can impeach the president. And one way they did it, they passed the Tenure of Office Act. 1867, they passed this. And what it said is basically, if Congress approved someone for a position, then the president could not remove that person from the position without congressional approval. Well, that's all fine and dandy until Lincoln's Secretary of War, who had been approved by Congress, Edwin Stanton. Edwin Stanton was a big-time radical. He was siding with them. And so Andrew Johnson fires him, gets rid of him. Stanton locks himself in his office. They have people bringing food to Stanton's window, and he's cooking it in there. He's sleeping in there. He's staying in there. And finally, these people that have been looking for a way to impeach him say, well, he's broken this law. He's fired someone who was approved by Congress. They put him up for impeachment. In 1868, the House voted 126 to 44 to impeach him. That means hold a trial. You're familiar with all these terms because we just lived through it. So they vote to impeach him. They actually, you'll see a picture, a picture of a ticket to the impeachment proceeding. They sold tickets or gave tickets out to allow citizens to come in and watch. This was a big time deal. You'll see some of the players on 309, the Chief Justice and Benjamin Wade and Senator Edmund Ross. Edmund Ross is important because he voted to acquit Johnson. The final vote was taken, and what they realized is that if Johnson is acquitted, or if Johnson is removed, then Benjamin Wade is going to become president. And he was an extreme radical. And he thought things that most Americans would have found just atrocious. And so they realized if we get rid of Johnson, then this guy's going to be president. And so they took a final vote, and 19 voted to acquit him. 35 senators voted to convict. You got to have 2/3, as you'll remember, to remove someone from office. They fell one vote short of that 2/3 majority. Now, one other thing, that Tenure of Office Act, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, later on, about 10 years later, it's going to be declared unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's very important.